Porn is one of, if not the most damaging thing to this population today, I firmly believe, and especially young men. I feel like the abolition and the ban of all making and consuming porn would be a net positive for us as a whole. And I think that us as a nation should be extremely ashamed of how we've allowed this to become as rampant as it has. But before I get into that, I have suffered from this myself in my personal life. And I feel like for anyone else who is going through this chronic addiction, I hope that I have something that you can take away from. But let me go back to my original point of how this industry is, in my opinion, one of the top three things that is truly responsible for a lot of the things that people have rightful complaints about, rightful fears about when it comes to men and young men in our society today. I feel like anyone who has a functioning frontal lobe will agree that the industry of porn has been extremely damaging to generations of young men at this point. However, it has, of course, only gotten even worse with the advent of the internet, smartphone devices, everything in the palm of your hand. And at a certain point, you just have to wonder, why is it that there is no such thing as an age restriction on many of these sites unless it's enforced by the state? Why is it that something like that can even be allowed? The porn industry has been around for much longer than the internet has, but the problem is, in the current age, it is extremely accessible, and anyone who, even if your state has laws that restrict, the viewing of porn unless you're over the age of 18, for example, there is so many ways around that. You can download VPNs for very cheap that will get you around this very easily. You can lie about your age in various ways. And the thing is that none of this is really enforced by hardly anyone on any level that I have really seen. So of course, some of these states, I'm not sure which ones. I know there are states that have laws like these in place. I have never heard of this stuff being actually enforced. It might provide a soft barrier, which can be a good thing, but the barrier is so easy to get around for anyone who has any knowledge of how the internet works, or how, location is tracked, and how to get around these things. I'm not, of course, endorsing this, but what I'm saying is I think that the fact that it is extremely easy for someone who's especially under the age of 18 to access these sites as much as they want is something that is a testament to the nation as a whole and the population, and a population that, instead of being okay with this existing or even endorsing it existing, I've seen from a lot of people, we should be advocating the absolute erasement of this from our society. However, everyone seems content with sitting back, and the effects of porn on the human mind, as it is recorded, have similar effects to hard drugs. This is nothing new, of course. I feel like so many young men today struggle with certain vices, lust being one of the biggest ones. That's just, for most men throughout history, I feel like a pretty common issue. And it is brutal to think about my own life and how fast it has completely destroyed my mind looking back on my life. And I'm thankful to say that I have gotten out of, I feel like, definitely the worst parts of this addiction. Um, and at this point, it's not so much trying to prevent myself from going on certain websites, it's to protect yourself and your mind from things that we interact with on a daily basis, such as social media, from having these same kind of chemical reactions, I suppose you could say it. Some people might say, oh, that's a you problem. And to a certain extent, that is true. However, there is absolutely truth to the fact that social media and advertising and movies and television have become extremely sexualized. And once again, many of these things are extremely accessible to people who are under the age of 18. The complete disregard and lack of any kind of direction of morals in terms of this subject that our nation has, that us as a people have, for the most part, completely avoided enforcing on any large level, is completely destroying the young men. And I can attest to this myself. When I was growing up, through high school, through college, something like uh, something like an addiction to porn. It's extremely common, and it's absolutely disgusting how common it is. And the other thing that people don't really talk about that much is just how much of your personal life gets wrapped around this awful addiction. At least where I was at, it's pretty obvious to see how this almost completely uncensored, or unregulated industry has warped the minds of millions and millions and millions of young men. I grew up in a very small town, and I saw it affect nearly everyone in my high school, at least that I knew on a personal level. Nearly everyone. There's a few that I would say probably weren't, but nearly everyone watching porn at a young age. We'll say anywhere from sixth, seventh grade up to beyond that. People would be talking about it, and at a certain point in time, as a young man, and you're stupid and you're young, and you just have to see it for yourself, and then everything just falls apart from there. Um, I feel like there are some people that are less victim to this than others, or at least less prone to being a victim to this. And I feel like there's other people that are way more prone to being a victim to this. I would consider myself someone who was very prone to being a victim of the addiction and the sin and the absolute awful habit of pornography. Anyways, for those of you that might be looking for advice on how to get rid of this issue, or at least start to work on the issue, I would say, if you have the ability to throw away your smartphone, if you have a smart device, do it. Do it for like a year, and keep yourself. I don't know. I mean, like, find ways to put blockers on your internet settings. Find ways to put your mind on other things. What really has helped me out the most is coming to Jesus Christ as a sinner, understanding my own shortcomings, understanding where I'm at risk, trying to catch it before it becomes something that takes hold of me. It's all a challenge, and it's not just the adult websites that are the issue. It is so much of life outside of that that keeps on trying to pull you back into this pattern, into these habits. It's very promoted in media today, trying so hard not to say society. Anyways, that's about everything I got. Hope you're having a good one. See ya.